Hey guys, it's DeNita, your Crafty Paint Lady with Farm and Home Hardware, and today we're going to do a quick tutorial about making a serving tray. These are a nice rustic farmhouse look. We can actually engrave it with your initial and your name on it, or you can do it as a plain one or whatever you'd like. But we will have kits for these available at our stores. Call the store for details and we'll get that hooked up for you. But real cute, real easy, and I'm going to start to do one. If you just wanted it plain, they do look really pretty with the wood, natural wood. Get one that has some really nice knots in it or green in it. But for our example, we're going to use one that was engraved with our engraving machine at Farm and Home. The kit that is available at the store has everything you need to do it with, except for like a hammer, and I would use a nail. That's for distressing. But it does come with instructions, step by step. Hopefully I made them as easy to understand as possible. Your handles, which are just sashes, like window sashes, so really cute. So they come with 2 of those. Come with your 1x12 cut, and like I said, you can either have it engraved for an extra charge or get one that is plain. I'll also give you the handle parts there for the sides, out of the 1x3s. We're going to use something called aged wood from Varathane. Great product. It's not a stain, so it's more of a water base. Although it is water based, it is tough to get off your hands and your clothes, so I do suggest making sure you wear your painter clothes. And I did include gloves in the kit. But the Varathane aged wood accelerator, fantastic. It comes, we're using the brown, the aged wood. But it also comes in a weathered gray and a charred wood, which is an awesome black looking wood. But a lot easier to work with than stain, less smelly, less chemicals, that kind of stuff. So really fun to work with. And you'll get a foam brush in your kit. And you'll also get, I threw in a couple screws in case you're having trouble getting these guys to stay on, but I put mine on with just wood glue, so you'll get a little packet of wood glue. So hopefully that will be enough, but you can drill up from the bottom. But if you do that to put these handles on, but if you do that, you'll have to make sure you countersink up pretty good, so you don't want it scratching up any table or anything. You could also put felt over top of the heads of these. But that's a last resort. Don't use them if you don't need them. But those are great for distressing. So that's one of those little added bonus in there. Got a pair of gloves that I highly recommend you use, and a rag, because we'll be washing it, wiping it in, kind of wiping it off, and drying it a little faster. So that's everything you'll get in your kit. First thing we're going to do is distress it, which is, this is the wonderful therapy. A couple tips with that. You want to go as random as possible, because if you do a nice pattern all the way around every single thing, it'll look very like you bought it in a store. You want random, you want age, you want to look like it was around the family for 100 years, it's fallen on the floor. You know, that kind of stuff. So you want it very, very random. So I did put a few hammer marks in my wood here too, but you don't want to do too much of that. This is just from the head of the hammer. You don't want to do a whole lot of that because it will actually pool in there, and if you do like cover the whole thing, it will kind of take away from your engraving. Now, if you're doing a plain one, have at it. Have a lot of fun with it. But again, very random. You don't want it to look like you did it. You want it to look like aged just got to it. Another thing we're going to be doing with the nails, as you can see right here, or the screws that are included, I wanted like wormholes or insect holes that look like it was in the wood when the wood was cut. So we're going to kind of do that. Again, random, but if you kind of bunch up a few places together, it looks like more like a colony or whatever. So it looks really nice, and it does pull in the extra varathane, the accelerator, so it actually will darken up spots that are kind of deep. So keep that in mind while you're doing it. So we're going to just have at it. Harder in some places. You're not going to see a lot of your sides here, but I like to do them. But just very random like that. And as you can see, this one actually had like a crease in it where it had been, something had jabbed it, and it had, but I'm embracing that. I think it'll look really cool with it. But again, you don't want it to be the same everywhere. You want it very random. I'm not going to do too much there. And do my edges a lot more than the body of it, because like I said, you don't want too much on here to take away from your engraving if you are doing that. So I'm pretty happy with that. And because I'm kind of weird this way, I like to do the back. Especially if you're going to keep it yourself, you might not care. Should I hand this down or give it as a present? You want it to look like you cared about it and did all it. And kind of a fun thing with the back, I like to do the back because I like to practice on that. So sometimes I'll, see how long I want to keep the stuff on. And if you do the back first, you haven't hurt anything. That helps you get the technique down. All right. And we're not going to forget our little sides here. These have to be done too. Same thing. Really focus on the edges. Harder in some spots than others. All the corners really shouldn't have tight corners. That is one thing that happens with age for sure. The age of a product. So we'll get those sides and edges done. And again, I'm not sure what I want to do. If you got a nice piece, you probably don't have to worry about doing both sides of it because you will be gluing those down on the sides. But if you're not sure what you're going to use, then go ahead and do that. And the sides are going to show, so I'm going to bang those up pretty good too. And I'm going to leave the one side pretty flat because that's going to handle my glue. But again, I'm going to get all those corners beat up pretty good. So it doesn't take much to really give it a whole lot of character, but it really does give it a ton of character. Now I really like that knot, so I'm going to use this as my top part that's going to show. So I'm not going to beat up that one side too much. So, and again, we don't want it perfect, and you don't want, every inch hammer mark. Want to be random. And I like to, a little harder in some areas and softer in some, miss some altogether. But I really do like to beat up those edges there. I'm going to just mark on the sides. Sorry about the noise. But like I said, what a great therapy. Work off some frustrations. Alright, that looks great. So we're going to set those aside. Now I'm going to show you how I like to do my wormholes. And I think I hammered all my pieces of parts away. So I do have, you don't have a screw with it, a nail will work, anything like that. So again, very random. But what I'm going to do is create a little colony there, move on, create a little colony here, some deeper, some not so much, very random. Now, of course, no one's going to see the bottom, but it's a good place to get your technique down. And then you can see kind of what you want. And you can put ones and twos, but I like to kind of bunch them up a little bit more, just to get that look. And I don't like to do them too deep either, but you definitely want to be able to see them. So I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it just some random colonies of what maybe bugs getting into them. Now remember, your sides are going to be covered, so you don't have to deal too much with that. See, just a little bit of, and very random spots. Do it kind of lighter here so it's not going to take away from my wording. All right, and you know, don't need to do too much, but this is all a preference of look, how you want it to look. And I'm going to do a little here so it just looks like it got kind of covered by this. And then we're also going to do our sides, so and just 5 to 10 little areas. And you can't mess this up. This is just a random thing, and it's all about how it looks good to you. So just have fun. It is free. All right, so I'm liking that way. I'm liking the way that's going to look. All right, so we are going to get our gloves on. This out of the way. And we will start with our varathane. And again, in the kit, I do have the aged varathane for you. But if you wanted to do this kind of on your own, obviously you could stain it. You could put tongue oil on it. You could put butcher block oil. You can make it food safe. This is not considered food safe. But after it cures, if you want to put a butcher block oil on it, that would make it more food safe. To me, it was more decoration or just a set. You can, you know, put glasses on it, that kind of thing. But if you did want to make it food safe, there are ways to do that. Everything is kind of food safe after all of the curing takes place, but just make sure you read whatever product you're going to use. This one, not considered food safe unless you let it cure good and then put butcher block oil on it, which we do sell in the paint department. So, all right, so I shook it up good. A real dark Danish oil would be adorable with this too. So there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do with that. But we have our varathane. Now, because I want this is where I'm going to put my wood glue. I want this to dry first. So normally I would do the back, but since we're in a hurry with the video, I'm going to do the front first. But I'm also going to kind of give you a couple little tips here. When you're doing anything that's engraved, really want you to go around and get that, work it into the engraved areas first. Because we want that to pull in there a little bit, soak in. The longer you leave this on, the darker it'll be, but then you don't want it to be, you know, too much either. But I'm going to put a really good amount in my engraving. I've had people in my class ask if you need to do the back. You don't have to do the back, but I think that that would be a good idea, especially if you were going to ever give it as a gift. But that is up to you. So we're going to work that in there real good. Work it into the engraved parts. And then I'm going to do the entire thing before I wipe it in. So we're going to let it set. Now, like I said, you can also do more coats. You should have enough for 2 coats in the kit. If not, just let us know if you run out. But I put a little extra in there. So I worked it into the engraving real well. And now we're just going to Go across the whole thing, working in real nicely. The foam brush is great for this because it really helps push that stuff into the wood grain. There's no need to sand these pieces first or anything. You can, of course, but we're going for a more rustic look, so we just go beat it up a little bit and then go to town with this. So you see how it's really picking up in those hammer marks, and you can see the little bug holes that we made with the hammer and the screw. Those look really nice in there. So we're just going to work that in. Now you might have spots that don't want to take it. Again, I think you should embrace it. I think it looks good, but you can see there's like a few spots that aren't going to be as dark as the other. I think that looks great. You want it to look like it's been around for a long, long time. So I'm going to do my sides before I wipe this off. So I've worked it in really good with my foam brush, but we're going to do our sides. And you don't want it to run. It is really thin stuff. This is real thin to work with. Very watery. So you want to watch your drips. So if I'm coming down across this and it gets too dark, it's going to look like a big line on that. So I don't want that. I'm going to get some off my brush here, and then I'll kind of pull that back up. But you definitely want to watch your drips because they'll be darker. And we don't want that. Make sure you, as you can see the mess I'm making already, make sure that you work with a drop cloth underneath. I prefer the drop cloths that have the paper and then the plastic. So we want to make this even, so I'm just kind of coming back down to give everything a little bit of a two-coat. Okay. And every time I do a corner that I might drip on there, I want to do that. So, all right. So the edges that have been cut are going to be real thirsty. So make sure you get those guys in there and work it in. And then you come back around and look at it before you wipe everything off to make sure that you don't have any spots that soaked in too much. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful on this side so I don't have to too much. So don't get too much on your brush at first when you're doing like those edges, because they have to be a little more precise. So you can see there's going to be like little parts, if you're not careful, that will on the sides will show where it's been a longer, and that will get darker. So be careful with that. Be very precise. If you get any up here, you want to make sure you feather it in. Alright, that looks good, so we're going to wipe some of this off. And you want to work it in because you don't want any spots that look darker than the others, so just kind of wipe that in until it dries almost. That'll help it dry to where so we can go to get to the next step too. So, alright, so that looks good. Okay, so it's getting really dark, and you see how my the M is going away. I am going to start scrubbing that off. So we're wiping it out. Oh, that looks really good, and it's really pulling into my hammer marks. If you want it lighter, you can wipe it off before you start to do the sides, or start with the sides. And if you want it darker, you can leave it on a little bit longer. Totally up to you, but it really does some good, cool stuff with the wood grain. So, all right, that looks good, and that will help. Wiping it down will help it to dry, so we're ready to go to when we glue on our sides there. All right, it looks good. I love this. Got like a mark in the wood that's really picking up differently. It looks good. Okay, that looks great. Super fun. And it will dry up too as it soaks through. Okay, and I'm going to be real careful we don't get any on the other side. All right, and this, we're just going to brush it through. So if you're doing a plain one without engraving, this would be what you're looking at. And like I said, if I have no engraving, I'd probably distress a little bit deeper. Okay, that looks great. If you have any places that are, you know, beat up a little, you want to give them a little extra. But that foam brush really holds a lot in. Look how fun that is. Easy peasy, one step. All right, and we're going to wipe this down. And you see how this is a little bit lighter. I didn't let it sit in too long. But it still really shows those great wood grain and the distress marks that we made. Looks fabulous. See how the wormholes, they look great. Okay, so we're going to put this guy aside for a moment. And if you got spots that you don't like on there, you can sand a little, and just because they just might be mill marks. All right, looks good. So we're just going to do these real quick. Same thing, marks, you want to, where you hammered it in, you want those in a little bit, the edges, you want to make sure you get those good. Watch for drips, because they will show, because it's, it'll stay on the wood longer. Make sure you work it in good, get those parts that were cut because they're the thirstiest. We're just going to wipe this guy down real quick. Look how those great sides are where I beat it up with the hammer. Just pick up. Look at all the character that that brings out. It's really good. So we don't want it perfect. We want it to look like it's been in the family for a long time. All right, we'll get this other one done. Now, of course, you don't have to distress if you don't like that look. By all means, this is your piece, so this also would look really good chalk painted with, you know, some fun colors. So if you have a more modern house, you could actually do this with the stain or the accelerator, the aged wood accelerator, and then chalk paint over that too. But if you do that, you would want to make sure that you either wax it or put on a clear coat sealer of some sort. So, but you can always stop by the paint department and ask if you have any questions about that. All right. So we're going to wipe this guy down. It looks really nice. So there is, I don't want to say no smell, but no bad smell to this stuff. So it's much easier to work with in the house than this oil-based stain. And real easy to work with. Like I said,